Well, here we are, Axis Empires, and we started off the year 1943. I think I kind of forgot to move things into the proper position last turn. But I know I had played not just the event card, but then the January-February turn. So we're on the event card phase, or the card choice phases here for the March-April turn. And Japan, still seeking peace. Nothing came of it, really. They got the plot failed and negotiation failed, I guess. They definitely got the plot failed. I don't think I rolled this one. Let's see, negotiations failed. Okay, so nothing happened on their side. However, the Germans turned up Operation Sea Lion. Now this is going to start the total war. That triggers all kinds of stuff. It removes Barbarossa from the game. And I think this ended up being a mistake because I didn't realize everything this triggers. Now, the Germans had to basically play one of these two. Had they played Barbarossa, not much changes, just their replacements come in different amounts. They still get the same forces, 6 panzers and 12 infantry. A little bit more delay on the strategic warfare assets that they're pumping against Britain. So essentially the two cards are the same, really. At first I thought I made a huge mistake. It turns out, hey, it's okay. But the weird thing here is, or at least the thing I didn't expect, is that Germany's at war with Russia now. Yep. You declare Sea Lion, Russia's going to move. And I don't know how realistic that is. Something in me kind of is disturbed by it, but the way this world has been progressing, the way the Germans move towards the Russians move towards an entente with France, even if they didn't really get it, I can definitely see them coming to Britain's aid here rather than just continuing to build up as one might expect in a more traditional setup with maybe a Sea Lion taking place. For example, if it was 1941 early, I'm not so sure Russia would enter into a Sea Lion situation. They might hope that the Brits are able not just to withstand it, but even if conquered, are able to be enough of a drain on Germany that they're not an advantage. Anyway, into this game, no matter what, you do Sea Lion, you bring that card up. Now, obviously, I've done Sea Lion, right? I got Germans here around London. So I've succeeded in it already. I've done the invasion. It's just playing the card. If things get that far, you have to bring Russia into the game. And that's what's happened. And now we're going to start seeing that sparking. And one of the things that's in play here is the Japanese really needed that card to come out because they're planning on taking total war on their theater as their next card. Otherwise, they're just doinking around and getting picked off by the Americans. All right, well, it's going to be a painful, painful set of turns. Germans have these huge amounts of replacements coming in that I haven't placed yet. They're going to have, 3 blitz markers. They don't have a lot of air power. Probably use it against the Russians as much as they can because the Brits, well, they're already, they took their stab at the Brits and failed. The only thing that I'm regretting is having allowed Persia to get its replacements. Had I not done that, well, I would have been able to seize it without a fight. And that would have been legitimate because of Sea Lion. Triggers an automatic declaration of war if you want. At the beginning of your turn, those are powerful. Persia doesn't have any pieces. I could have grabbed it with one, sent the rest of my army towards either Egypt or, more likely, hey, somebody's got to do something about those Russians. All right, well, we'll put the vice on Russia from multiple sides, see what happens, try to take Britain out. U.S., this also triggers their entry. They're coming in about a year, and the game will end at least in Europe, if it's not over by here. Now, it doesn't actually end in the 2-map game. So for example, if the Victory Europe Day kind of gets boned and gets pushed further back, that creates victory points that count towards both maps. But if both go over, it's going to be an Axis victory. At this point though, the way the game works, this is not a game that I think the Axis, under any circumstances, have a very good chance of just winning outright. Do they in any World War II games? I don't know. Certainly not in some, in some, but you know, I'm thinking Third Reich here, where any competent ally is not going to be able to let the Germans. Now, I'm not obviously confident on either side, so playing against me, it's possible. I know in WIF, the guy who opposed me the last time I played seemed convinced, he was the Germans, I was the Russians, he seemed convinced he could just win it all as the Germans. I think A, he was kind of cheating, and B, he actually had never played somebody competent in Russia, I think, because it was a fairly new game to me. I had played Japan once before, and I think the US one time. But just taking my knowledge of how to defend and using the river lines, etc., I was able to completely stymie him, even though other players were saying after the game that he was building more troops than they thought was possible. Nobody was paying too much attention, but they thought he was just, you know, cranking them out at a ridiculous rate. All right, well, and that was actually the last time any of us played with him. Not that I'm sure that had any effect on me, at least. All right, well, let's get started with this. I think it's going to be a lot of videos cranking through this year because this is the war going on. And, you know, as things go quicker, well, we'll see. I probably won't need as many. So largely ignoring the Pacific. I'll go to that later. I know you're not supposed to do that, but I really feel like I have to in this case. Let's take a look at where the Germans are attacking. They're making a blitz into London again. Try to grab that. They got the problem that next turn's a mud turn. So right now things are nice. And I actually probably have a snow marker somewhere that I got to remove. But next turn it's going to be bad again. In fact, worse than it is in the winter. Over here, another salient in Greece where they're going to try to push their way through here. They're not really gaining much in Persia. They could have grabbed it for free if they had played their card correctly. They didn't. I noticed I also have been cheating in favor of the Allies here. I forgot I had put a subfleet. Now I have 2 in there. That's penalties to their delay rolls. And I gave the Brits a couple of an extra delay turn for each unit that was currently in the box. But that's been there for a while that I've been kind of ignoring it, I think. Just so many things to keep track of. Over here, we've got a little attack coming through here. Now you can say, oh my, that's a big unit. As far as I can tell, as long as he can break into the Ukraine on the next turn, on this battle, it's safe. But if it gets stuck here, it's going to cause a problem where Romania is going to kind of collapse because of it. And we've got likewise, well, Hungary's no big deal because they were conquered. But Poland, well, there are no German units in Poland that are multi-step. They're actually careful about that because they've got to retake eastern Poland, which is part of Poland. Up here in the Baltics, we've got to be kind of careful that we don't advance there. But at least with anything that's big. And then here, trying to cut forward, make that push towards Moscow or whatever. We'll see how the Germans can do on this. Well, very briefly, just because I don't want to get too out of sync, I moved my Japanese and I actually took their entire turn here. They're just shifting their forces, trying to position themselves in some sort of way that they can try to defend what they've got. It's really tough, though. There's not a lot they can do. And the initial assault here wasn't all that impressive. The Germans having to be careful not to go into Poland with their heavy units here. Ended up driving the Russians back, but not gaining the territory they want. Now they got kind of an exploit here heading towards Moscow. They've got to be real careful because of Poland's sensitivity to this usage. They also kind of got stymied here, and I broke down a unit. I'm not sure if that was legitimate. It probably should have been a two-step unit and broke the entire Romanian front. Then I screwed up royally, and yeah, I didn't want to do that, but they got stymied in Greece as well, and they're kind of slogging through things down here. I don't think this is going to work out very well for the Germans at all. We're going to see, the Russians don't have a hammer right now, but they will. They will. I think that's pretty clear. All right. When did these come in? Yes, the Baltic State invasion. Yeah, that's why they have so many forces. But I think the Russians are going to be able to put together a pretty potent force and start doing more than just defending themselves. Although they are definitely losing some ground here, and they're going to have to pull back and give probably some more, but it's not going to be anywhere near as deep as the historical Barbarossa was. Well, let's jump in and go to the Allied and Russian turns and see what they do. So for the Allies, they fired off Operation Longclaw, gives some extra troops. They had an extra aircraft carrier available in addition to their surface fleet. They chose, looking at their situation, to actually... I think I cheated. I think I forgot about this interceptor. I didn't see it. Oh, well, too bad. We've cheated for the Axis, right? Let's cheat for the Allies now. Because I don't want to go back on this. Anyway, they were looking at if the Japanese want to neutralize their aircraft carrier using their own bomber, they're not going to have anything to stop the surface fleet from making a landing somewhere else. So they made a low odds attack. They brought an extra troop in, had 4 strength points against 1 with a blitz marker from Operation Longclaw, and got very, very lucky on the first roll and caused a step loss. Actually, it was an exchange. It ended up being, 1-to-1 with a drop down. Actually, it's not that bad. On a 1 or a 2, they get an exchange. But on anything else, they got penalized and took hits. Still, worth the attempt because there was no real loss there. And they ended up taking Truk, knocking the fortress out cheaply and taking that in place. Now, actually, it was 3-to-2 table, not 1-to-1. And I think if you look at the numbers there, it's much, much better. Well, it should have been 1-to-1 had the airplane been in place. Yeah, I don't know. I think I looked on the 3-to-2 though. Oh well. Over here in Europe, not a lot happening. The Allies played Western military aid. Nothing showed up on the political events. And over in Britain, well, they took some replacements, but that's all they've got. Now it's on to the Ruskies, finish off this month, and then go into, I guess, the April-May turn. And having seen how small Germany's deck was, Russia wasn't totally unprepared. Of course, in the Far East, they still had to do the border defense. But they had a card that they thought was cool over for the European map. Zhukov takes command, gave them a blitz, which didn't really help, actually. And what it does is it sets up some cool other cards that they need, but some extra units in the delay box. A few steps, not many, but they've got this situation where they've got so many, they've got these cards that produce like 20-something infantry steps. Well, they don't have that many to produce. So putting their whole army back out and not getting all of it back feels kind of painful. They don't quite want to do that. Maybe they're going to take a risk of losing more than they would otherwise, though. They did make kind of a counterattack here, which didn't work. They lost an armor step for it. But they've fallen back and are trying to get more of a defensive line outside of Poland. That'll let, of course, the Germans get back into play with some of those units and maybe start building those big units back up. All right, well, this is enough for this one video. This is the beginning of the spring, really, March, April. But I'm going to just keep pushing through because I think we're going to see a lot happening with the Barbarossa happening basically there. All right, English didn't counterattack, didn't do anything in Norway, didn't really do anything at all. Ooh, we got the Russians kind of threatening here in Turkey, though. All right, let's see.